Comforting a grieving person is a very delicate matter. It's very easy to hurt someone. Would you like to get to know how to do it right using some psychological approach? If yes, stay tuned. Hi, this is Sebastian Antonovich. On my 5-minute psychology channel, I talk about psychology, self-development and education. And today I would like to talk to you about situations in which you have to comfort a grieving person. I'm sure you have already been in a situation like this, and if not, you probably will be at some point in your life. The first thing we should do is to acknowledge their loss, rather than pretend you don't know what's happened or just to leave things unsaid. It's better to say that you are sorry for the loss. This way you are not creating the pressure on them to start the conversation on this topic. It could be really difficult for them. They may not know if you would like to know about it. It could be a little bit problematic for them, so let's spare them this additional difficulty. When we comfort someone, it's very important not to pretend that you can read their minds. So I suggest never to say, I know exactly what you are going through. Because the truth is that you don't know exactly what they are going through. Even if you have already lost someone very important to you, you are after all a different person, and maybe their emotions are slightly different from yours. Also, when you say that you know exactly what they are going through, you are kind of diminishing their grief. It's better not to do that. When comforting a grieving person, I would suggest not to give any advice. It's not that there is something particularly wrong about giving someone advice. It's rather that the time is not right for that. The grieving person may not be ready to receive your wisdom. Rather than that, from my perspective, it would be much better to concentrate on listening to the grieving person. Reaching out to the grieving person is a very important thing to do. When someone has lost someone very important to them, they may be shattered. They may need your help, but they perhaps don't know how to ask for it. It could be very difficult for them emotionally. So don't assume that if they do need some help, they will ask you for it. Rather than this, just ask them if there is anything you can do for them. It's a good idea to check out on the grieving person from time to time on a regular basis, but not obsessively. Even if you have already told the grieving person that they can count on you, perhaps at the very beginning, at the very first time when you did it, they were not able to concentrate on it. Perhaps they have forgotten about it, or perhaps they just feel that you didn't really mean it. It would be a good idea to remind them that you are there for them, and if they need your help, you will be happy to do that. And when you do offer your help, do it in a practical and a direct way. So rather than saying, if there is anything you need, just let me know. It's better to say, hey, I'm going to the city center. Do you need me to help you with any paperwork related to organizing the funeral? Or perhaps to say, I have made 2 lasagnas, and today at 5 p.m. I will be in your neighborhood. Would you like me to bring one to you? This way, you increase the chance for the grieving person to use your help. I've noticed a couple of times in my life that some people who wanted to comfort the grieving person, they used phrases like, hey, be grateful for your life. From my perspective, this is not the best thing to say. Or something like, hey, but you still have your children to live for. You have such a great job. Or, well, you still have your health. From my perspective, we should never use these phrases, because very likely the grieving person already knows that they have something to be grateful for, but emotionally they are not really able to concentrate on that right now. Also, they may feel some remorse when you tell them that they have such a great life, and yet right now they are crying and feeling really bad and upset. Rather than that, it's better just to keep it to yourself. Regardless if you're a religious person or not, I suggest never to blame it on God. Even if you are absolutely and 100% sure of the religious beliefs of the person, it's better not to say phrases like God wanted it this way, or she was such a good person that she is with God now. First of all, you are never sure if the person has not lost their faith due to this traumatic experience. And secondly, even if the person is religious, perhaps this is not the right moment to make them feel like it's God who has taken away the loved person, because they can actually lose their faith. When we want to comfort someone grieving, it's really easy to say things that are simply not true. Like, for example, oh, your father was such a great person. Or, I really loved him. Or, if you need my help, just let me know. If you are not feeling like helping the grieving person, don't offer that. There is nothing more shattering than learning that not only have I lost someone important, but also my friend has lied to me that he would be happy to help me. Rather than that, it's safer to use some more neutral phrases like, I feel very sorry for your loss, or please accept my condolences. This way, you are, first of all, being polite, you are trying to comfort the grieving person, and you are staying true to yourself and to the other person. Many a time in my life, I've heard people saying things like, he was really old and this is why it's natural that he died. Or, everyone has to die one day. Or, he was sick for so many years, maybe it's better this way that he died. Even if it is true, think what good is it going to do to the grieving person? From my perspective, not that much. So maybe it's better not to say it. If you do decide to say it, well, there is a big chance that the grieving person will feel some remorse, that perhaps they should not be feeling these negative emotions. They should not be so sad. Because after all, this is a natural way of life that people die. It's better to keep these comments to yourself. From my perspective, it could be a good idea to share with the grieving person some fond memories you have of the deceased one. And I know that you may be wondering if you are not going to make the grieving person feel worse, feel sadder. Well, I think that if the relationship between the two people was a really strong one, probably the grieving person is still thinking 100% of their time about the deceased loved one. So there is not much chance you're going to make them feel sadder. Just make sure that you choose a really good, positive, happy or funny memory. Remember that when you want to comfort a grieving person, you need to put your priorities on the back burner for a while. So concentrate on the grieving person totally. It's not only about spending your time together, it's also about truly being there with a grieving person. So don't play games on your mobile phone. Don't text your other friends in this time. Think how you can make the grieving person feel better. Even if you are not saying anything, you can just hold their hand or maintain eye contact, or maybe talk about whatever comes to your mind, not related to the deceased one. Just as long as you are there for the grieving person, it will probably make them feel a little bit better. When comforting a grieving person, do never assume that they need you to give them more space. Even if in general we are talking about a person who does not need loads and loads of people to keep them company, in a moment of grief, very often we can behave in a different way, and very often we need the support of others. So rather than assuming that they don't need anything from you, just offer your help, offer your presence from time to time. If they don't need it, they will probably tell you, but don't assume they don't need you at all. It's always a good idea to be patient with the grieving person. It's natural that when we are in the grieving process, our behavior changes, sometimes a little bit and sometimes a lot. So it's natural when we are in the grieving process that we are sadder than usual. And perhaps we don't want to speak too much, or perhaps we cry a lot. Perhaps we get panic attacks more often, or perhaps we are a little bit angry, we curse a lot. it's a good idea to be patient with the grieving persons. And this is because everyone handles their loss in a different way. Do never assume that your way of handling the loss of a loved one will be the same way that someone else can apply. On my channel, you will find a couple of other videos on grief and the grieving process. I hope you'll find them interesting and informative. If in general you are interested in psychology, make sure to subscribe to my channel to get all the latest videos. And I'll see you next time.